Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lin. Namaskar. Coming up in NewsHour. India and the EU agree to strengthen cooperation over peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. Also set a target for a free trade agreement by the end of 2025. US President Trump and the Ukrainian leader Zelenskyy to sign an agreement on rare earth minerals later in Washington, also to discuss US security guarantees for Ukraine. New tariffs of the United States on Mexico, Canada and China come into force from March 4. And Jos Buttler steps down as England's white ball captain following the Champions Trophy exit. The Three Lions' poor run of ODI form stretches back to the 2023 World Cup. India and the European Union have agreed upon a free trade agreement by the end of 2025. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, led a high-level delegation to India. Interactions were held at the leaders' level as well as at the ministerial level, with 22 commissioners from the EU travelling to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted 8 priority areas of cooperation. Here's our report.
India and the European Union set a cooperation framework during Prime Minister Modi's meeting with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the EU College of Commissioners in New Delhi on Friday.
हमारी पार्टनरशिप को एलिवेट और एक्सेलरेट करने के लिए कई महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय लिए गए हैं। ट्रेड, टेक्नोलॉजी, इन्वेस्टमेंट, इनोवेशन, ग्रीन ग्रोथ, सिक्योरिटी, स्किलिंग और मोबिलिटी पर सहयोग का एक ब्लूप्रिंट तैयार किया गया है।
We are the two largest democracies in the world. And under your leadership, Prime Minister, it has been thriving. We are bound by shared convictions and values. From resilient supply chains, we are shared interest to a free and open Indo-Pacific. We're working together.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted 8 priority areas of future cooperation. To conclude a beneficial FTA and investment protection agreement swiftly, to enhance supply chain resilience in electronics, semiconductors, telecom, engineering, defense and pharma for diversification and de-risking, and to transform connectivity through the IMEC corridor.
कनेक्टिविटी के क्षेत्र में इंडिया, मिडिल ईस्ट, यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर यानी आईमेक उसे आगे ले जाने के लिए ठोस कदम उठाए जाएंगे। मुझे विश्वास है कि आईमेक ग्लोबल कॉमर्स, सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ और प्रॉस्पेरिटी को ड्राइव करने वाला इंजन साबित होगा।
Other priority areas are to advance the technology and innovation in DPI, AI, quantum computing, space and 6G, to foster climate action and green energy through sustainable urbanization, water and clean energy, to collaborate in defense through co-development and co-production, to enhance security cooperation against terrorism, extremism, maritime security, cyber security, and space security, to simplify migration, mobility, Schengen visas, and EU blue cards for stronger people-to-people ties.
साइबर सिक्योरिटी, मैरीटाइम सुरक्षा और काउंटर टेररिज्म पर हम सहयोग के लिए आगे बढ़ेंगे। इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में शांति, सुरक्षा, स्थिरता और समृद्धि के महत्व पर दोनों पक्ष एकमत है।
From April 2000 to September 2024, India's FDI inflows from the EU reached 117.4 billion US dollars, representing 16.6% of the total 708.6 billion US dollars FDI equity inflow.
And one of the best examples of this partnership is the new Federation of European Businesses in India. It brings together 6,000 EU companies, which have created 8 million direct and indirect jobs in this economy.
This high-level delegation of the European Union College of Commissioners, led by President Ursula von der Leyen, is historic, since it is the first visit outside of Europe by the new College of Commissioners that took office in December 2024. Bureau Report, DD India.
And for an update on this story, we are joined by DD India correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who is joining us from New Delhi. Well, Akhilesh, what's been holding up this India EU FTA till now?
Before going into that, I will give you a flavor of how it panned out. Because we were told that in 1.5 days, 20 ministerial meetings took place between India and European commissioners. So you can understand that 20 ministers from Indian side and 20 ministers from European side, they sat together in 1.5 days. So you can understand that they want to understand each other in a big way, in a comprehensive way. And as far as that interaction, level of interaction is concerned, in last 18 months, there has been 110 meetings at different levels, right? From ministerial level to official level to high level. So they were planning about it for a long time. And
Sure.
this visit is about exposure, about understanding each other so that they can go into summit meeting later this year. And as far as FTA is concerned, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and European Commission President, they gave a very good instruction, the very strict instruction that by the end of the year, you have to complete it. So whatever differences are, we asked both the sides of officials that you have so many differences, but how can you finish in next 10 months? So they were very sure that the way our leadership has given instruction to us, we have to finish it. There are differences on the question of agriculture products. Europe wants to enter into agriculture marketing in India, and they also want to enter into car market, the wine market, and the liquor market. So I think that India had some hiccup. India also wants that you should remove the carbon tax. So all these things are being talked about, and everyone is having hope that by the end of this year, that it will be done.
Right, Akhilesh. Yes, Akhilesh, also what new areas of cooperation? You talked about, 20 different meetings taking place and several hundred meetings taking place over the last 18 months. So what new areas of cooperation and business interests are we likely to see adding impetus to the relationship?
Yeah, actually, that this visit and the relationship that is developing between India and EU is about trade in science and technology, in artificial intelligence, in green hydrogen, renewable energy, and also in defense sector. So I think there is no area of trade that is being left behind. And what is the feeling in both India and European Union that given the fact that Europe wants to de-risk from China, India is the only country that where it can dwell upon, and they are telling that Europe has a technology, Europe has competitiveness, but Europe doesn't have the scale. Europe doesn't have the talent, and it doesn't have the people who can implement those knowledge. So that is why they want to collaborate with India. And also the new situation has arrived because of Mr. Trump, the president of USA. They are also trying to find out that what we can do with India so that we can have the biggest market, biggest open market in the world, and also the biggest talent possible in India, because Indians are going to US, they are creating wealth there. They are giving impetus to technology there. They are doing all sorts of work there in science and technology. So if they can collaborate with India in this point of time, that is going for some more years before stabilizing. So I think before that they want to tap this energy, and that is why in all Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that we have to start a space dialogue. They are
Okay.
going into a space sector also, collaborating in a space sector also. So all these science, technology, and other areas of trade, they are going to collaborate.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Akhilesh Suman, for joining us and giving us the broad sweep of what this relationship is all about. Now, moving on to our next story. In fact, it is the same story. Earlier in the day, the second ministerial meeting of the India E.U. Trade and Technology Council was held in New Delhi. India's External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, along with his cabinet colleagues Piyush Goyal and Ashwini Vaishnav, participated in this meeting with several European commissioners, and the leaders took stock of the significant progress made in digital partnership, clean and green energy initiatives, and trade and investments, as well as resilient supply chains. They exchanged views on new opportunities in semiconductors, AI, 6G, EVs, green hydrogen, and also a mutually beneficial trade regime. Now, the leaders in attendance expressed confidence that today's discussions will translate into a new economic and trade linkage. Further, the External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar also participated in the India EU bilateral cluster meeting and alongside several commissioners of the European Commission. The Indian ministers Kirti Vardhan Singh and Nityanand Rai, they were also in attendance. Their conversation focused on connectivity and IMEC, as well as green and clean energy, mobility and talent, security, Mediterranean and EU expansion. In the second advance estimates of the annual gross domestic product of 2024-25, India's real GDP has estimated to grow grow by 6.5%. The growth has been contributed by double-digit growth rates in manufacturing sector. While nominal GDP is expected to witness a growth rate of 9.9% in fiscal year 2024-25. Both the growth rates are revised upward from the respective first advance estimates. The construction sector is estimated to observe a growth rate of 8.6%. Private final consumption expenditure is expected to register a good growth of 7.6%. However, the nation's real GDP growth rate of 9.2% for 2023-24 is the highest in the previous 12 years, except for the year 2021-22. And the Indian economy grew by 6.2% in the third quarter of the financial year 2024-25, with an estimated 6.5% growth for the full year. The economy is staying strong despite global challenges. A report by PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, highlighted that strong growth is in agriculture, services and construction. The report said that manufacturing grew by 3.5%, with people spending more, with a 6.9% rise. Now, investment in infrastructure is also increasing. 27.6% of GDP is going into development. Overall, the economy is growing, creating jobs and staying strong despite global challenges. Still to come here on DD India NewsHour. The British Prime Minister Starmer will be hosting European leaders for talks on Ukraine after his meeting with the US President Trump. And Trump says that the ongoing Gaza talks are pretty good, as the first phase of the ceasefire is set to conclude. And suicide attack at a religious school in Pakistan kills 6 during Friday prayers.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, a week ago, the US President Donald Trump had branded Volodymyr Zelenskyy as a dictator. On Friday, he is going to host the Ukrainian president at the White House. They're going to sign a deal granting Washington access to Ukraine's rare minerals. The extraordinary turnaround that caps a week of frantic international diplomacy centered on Washington as Kiev seeks to shore up support despite Trump's recent pivot towards Russia. Trump insisted that the deal was necessary for Washington to recoup the billions of dollars it has given to Ukraine in military aid. Let's look at this report.
As the United States and Ukraine meet to work out a deal to allow American access to the European country's rare earths, minerals, and other natural resources, President Donald Trump is all set to host Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the White House, weeks after dubbing his Ukrainian counterpart a dictator.
So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
The deal would see the United States jointly develop Ukraine's mineral wealth, with reserves going to a newly created fund that would be a joint one for both Ukraine and America. How much the deal would be worth to the United States is yet to be spelt out. Trump had earlier said he expects to gain hundreds of billions of dollars, while Zelenskyy says he would not sign an agreement that would put his country in debt for generations. According to President Zelenskyy, Ukraine has Europe's largest reserves of titanium, essential for the aviation and space industry, and uranium, which is used for nuclear energy and weapons. Rare earths are a group of 17 metals used to make magnets that turn power into motion for electric vehicles, cell phone, missile systems, and other electronics items. And there are no known substitutes for these.
Rare earths are used in just about every technological application you can think of. So if you picture your cell phone or medical technology or military technology or energy generation technology or petroleum refining, rare earth elements likely have a role in those technologies. Whether it's present simply as a doping agent to make a magnet stronger or a metal alloy even more resilient, or in some cases, they might act as signal amplifiers.
Ukraine has deposits of 22 of the 34 minerals identified by the European Union as critical.
So the Ukrainians are claiming that they have some 5% of the world's rare earth metals in their territory. That is to say, in internationally recognized Ukrainian territory, which is not the same as what Kiev actually controls right now, of course. However, even this figure is disputed. There are reports out there which suggest that that has been overestimated.
The deal envisages that Ukrainian government would be contributing 50% of the future monetization of any state-owned natural resources to the fund. But it provides no amounts, timeline, or details about the fund's management. With Dheeraj Das, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
And the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has invited more than a dozen European and European Union leaders to a Sunday summit. They're going to drive forward action on Ukraine and security. The office of the British Prime Minister said that Starmer will chair this morning call with Baltic nations before welcoming the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy to Downing Street. Leaders will discuss the next steps in planning for security guarantees and how to strengthen Ukraine's current position with military support. Officials from Israel are in Egypt's Cairo for talks on phase 2 of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. The second phase aims to bring an end to the October 7 conflict and also bring back the remaining Israeli captives in Gaza. With phase 1 of the ceasefire ending on Saturday, Israel wants an extension and Hamas calls for a new phase. Talks for the second phase of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire resumed in Cairo on Friday, a day before the first phase of the ceasefire is set to end on Saturday. At the meeting, the Israeli delegation tried to reach a deal to extend the first phase of the deal by an additional 42 days or 6 weeks. Hamas, on the other hand, has insisted Israel immediately enters the second phase of the agreement without any delay. The next phase aims to bring an end to the conflict, including the return of all remaining living hostages in Hamas custody and the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from the territory. After the exchange of hostages and prisoners between the two regions on Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent his officials to Cairo. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump, in a conference on Thursday, said that his government had good talks on Gaza and was hopeful of some pretty good solutions.
It's a rough situation, but I think we're going to make it much better. And I think that we've had a huge impact on that since we've been in just the 4 weeks. I think we've had a huge impact on Gaza, the Middle East, and we have some pretty good talks going on concerning lots of other people that are going to make it better. So we'll see what happens. Nobody really knows, but we'll see what happens. But I think we've had a very positive impact.
Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich will meet U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington next Wednesday. With uncertainty over the second phase of the ceasefire, the world will have to wait and see whether the talks lead to peace or continuing conflict. Bureau Report, DD India. The US President Donald Trump is set to impose new tariffs on Mexico, Canada and China starting March 4, aiming to combat fentanyl, the crisis. And also, the move includes a 25% tariff on Mexican and Canadian goods and a 10% duty on Chinese imports, escalating trade tensions. While Canadian and Mexican officials seek to avoid the tariffs, China has vowed countermeasures. Let's look at this report.
President Donald Trump is set to enforce new tariffs on Mexico, Canada and China starting March 4th, citing the fentanyl crisis. The new measures include a 25% tariff on Mexican and Canadian goods and a 10% duty on Chinese imports, bringing the total Chinese tariff 20%. These actions come as Trump accuses the three countries of not doing enough to prevent the flow of deadly drugs into the US. Meanwhile, Canadian and Mexican officials are negotiating with the Trump administration to prevent new tariffs that could harm the North American economy. In an effort to avert these tariffs, Mexico has extradited several notorious drug lords to the US, including a cartel kingpin wanted for the murder of a US undercover agent. China, on the other hand, has vowed to take all necessary countermeasures after President Trump announced a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, warning it could disrupt talks. China's leadership will meet next week to discuss the plans to protect the economy from the escalating trade tensions with the US.
It puts Chinese policymakers in a bind. And again, any huge reaction will not only hurt the Chinese economy, but maybe will, in this tit for tat trade war, will make a new round of tariffs more likely via Trump. So likely what the Chinese government should do is try to negotiate, if possible, with the American government, some way to what is the deal that you want to avoid not only this round of tariffs, but also future rounds of tariffs.
Amidst the tariff threat, US President Donald Trump has suggested a great post-Brexit trade deal for Britain that could help avoid tariffs, praising Prime Minister Keir Starmer as a tough negotiator. During Starmer's visit to the White House, Trump expressed optimism about a trade agreement that would prevent the tariffs he threatened on other US trade partners.
We've had great discussions on trade, and I think we're going to have a deal done rather quickly as it can be done. We're going to have something, I think, rather quickly. We expect to do that.
European shares dropped on Friday due to concerns over US tariffs, with the Stock 600 index falling 0.4%. Losses were led by the basic resources sector, which dropped 1.3% as President Trump's upcoming tariffs on Mexican and Canadian goods put pressure on metal prices. With Rabindra Chauhan, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
In Germany, the Conservatives, led by the election winner Friedrich Merz, they have opened talks on Friday with the Social Democrats on swiftly forming a coalition as Berlin faces multiple challenges at home and abroad. Merz's CDU-CSU alliance won Sunday's election with 28.6% of the vote, while the SPD had scored a historic low of 16.4%. Merz has said that he wants a ruling coalition in place within 2 months of the vote by the Easter holiday. However, both sides will have to resolve key differences on thorny issues about immigration, on how to balance a tight budget. Also, Germany was plunged into political crisis in November when Scholz's three-way coalition with the Greens and the Liberal FDP had collapsed after months of infighting. A suicide attack at an Islamic religious school in Pakistan killed 6 people during Friday prayers. This includes Maulana Hamid ul Haq, the head of the Darul Uloom Haqqaniya. It's a seminary in northwestern Pakistan. Haq is the son of the late Maulana Sami ul Haq, a key figure in the Taliban's formation. He died instantly in the blast. The seminary, it's known for its historical ties with the Afghan Taliban. It was targeted while Haq was leaving the mosque. No group has claimed responsibility, but the attack injured people around, about 24 people. In Bangladesh, the National Citizens Party, a new political platform, formed by the students' activists of the July-August movement. It was officially launched in Dhaka's Manik Mia Avenue. This happened on Friday. Nahid Islam, a former advisor to the interim government, has been named as the convener, with Akhtar Hussain as a member secretary. Other key appointments include Hasnat Abdullah as the chief organizer for the south, Sarji Salam for the north, and Naziruddin Patwari as the chief coordinator. At the launch event, which saw thousands in attendance, party leaders called for a Constituent Assembly election to draft a new constitution, paving the way for Bangladesh's second republic. Let's take a look now at other stories making news from around the world. Clashes erupted in Athens as hundreds of thousands rallied across Greece on the second anniversary of the country's deadliest train crash, demanding justice for the 57 people who lost their lives in this Tempe disaster. The nationwide protests coincided with a massive strike that brought air, sea and rail transport to a standstill. Cyclone Guéron, it has battered the French overseas territory of La Réunion, bringing winds of up to 155 kilometers per hour. One person has died and 2 remain missing after the storm tore through the island, blowing away roofs as well as disrupting power and water supplies. And still to come here on DD India NewsHour. We'll discuss India EU ties in light of the key meetings that took place in New Delhi today.
India is known as the land of yoga. Few extraordinary individuals have taken this magic of ancient wisdom to people around the world.
Paramahansa Yogananda taught that, the basic law of right human behavior is self-reform. And that means if we can put the majority of our effort to changing ourselves for the better, then we will influence others in the world by our example. India has its ancient teachings of yoga has a real place to play in the developing world civilization. And what it means to be a global citizen, to consider the whole world kind of in your embrace.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. India and the EU agree to strengthen cooperation over peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. They set a target for a free trade agreement by the end of 2025. The US President Trump and the Ukrainian leader Zelenskyy will be signing an agreement on rare earth minerals later in Washington. They're also going to be discussing US security guarantees for Ukraine. New tariffs of the United States on Mexico, Canada and China will come into force from March 4. And going back to our story on India EU ties, we are joined by Ambassador Manjeev Puri. He's the former ambassador of India to the European Union. Thank you very much, Ambassador Puri. Now, how easy will it be, to conclude these negotiations on a free trade agreement by the end of the year?
Mark, absolutely the most important question. We've been at it for years on end, and we haven't moved forward. Look, my understanding is that, frankly speaking, both sides need to show a degree of political will and a willingness to do a certain amount of compromise. Now, let's look at the situation today. For the first time, all the 27 EU commissioners went to another country, a country outside the EU bloc. They came to India, a signal very clear to the world that India matters. We are a country of interest and an economy of interest. We should also recognize they are our largest trading partner in goods, the second largest economy in the world after the United States, and a massive technological financial powerhouse with which we have had old and abiding relations. Now, for bureaucracies and for all sides to have win with a capital W on all sides is a difficult task in these circumstances. But believe me, it is my considered belief, and for years we've held this belief, a trade agreement which truly benefits, pushes trade forward between the two, would lead to benefits on both sides. For the Europeans, a large and growing economy where they would have market access, a much better market access. And for India, a partnership with one of its oldest and most reliable, and let me say the partner with which we have the greatest degree of comfort. We need to push this forward. Yes. I sincerely hope that we will do it. And Mark, allow me to say just one other thing.
Yes.
I want to remind you of, what is going on today. People are saying that the Europeans are turning to us because, things are hotting up across the Atlantic, their traditional allies and so on. And that's true. They are also facing problems on account of Ukraine, the so-called decline in the European Union, in Europe as such. Great, wonderful. I'm not saying anything, but I think let's understand Europe remains a very massive economy. I want to take your opportunity to just remind people that in the early 1990s, when the Soviet Union was ending, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao advised his colleague that this was a time for building a partnership, for building friendship. And of course, the EU is nowhere near the situation of the USSR when it was collapsing. The EU is the second largest economy, a massive player. But this is a time for us to make also the efforts to build friendship, as should they. And this friendship, in my opinion, would be good for the world, good for the free world, good for the democratic world, and I must say, good for us and our economies, also good for the Europeans.
So you say, Ambassador Puri, that it's good for the world. Now, how important is the India EU Trade and Technology Council in the scheme of things and the future direction of the ties?
Look, this is an institutional mechanism which has been set up some years back to try and take this discussion forward. Now, all these institutional mechanisms, we've had them all for a long time. The India-EU strategic partnership is more than 20 years old. So there's no dearth of institutional arrangements. But I frankly believe that at this stage, we need to show political will. We keep demonstrating it. We keep saying it every time there's an India-EU summit. But they also need to demonstrate that particular political will and say, look, we'll also come down a little bit from our high horse and all our big demands. India on our side, we need to open up a little bit to them. But for my understanding, given that Europe is a technological powerhouse, a financial powerhouse, no matter this decline that people talk about, it's a partnership that has very clear opportunities for both sides and should be given the necessary political push. That's what is really needed.
So do you see, India's digital public infrastructure as well as the EU's digital wallet expected to transform business and people-to-people linkages?
Mark, it's difficult for me to say what would happen. Look, we are very proud of our digital public infrastructure. But in the Western world, these things are taken for granted. They are all over the place. Everybody knows it. You go anywhere, you go into a metro, everybody just swipes their phone and moves across. This is all over the Western world. And, frankly, it's good what we are doing. Our companies are good. But the whole area of the digital economy, especially with artificial intelligence coming in, where neither we are great players, nor is the EU. Therefore, the need to cooperate in all of this is also paramount. And I think all these areas are areas that we should look at. Let me mention the area of climate, which, across the Atlantic Ocean is being stained in the manners that nobody could ever imagine in the past. But given the fact that global warming is a reality, I am glad that two sides, in fact, today agreed to step up action on a green hydrogen mission, on doing research and so on and so forth. But frankly, Europe is at the end of the day, or the EU is at the end of the day, a large domestic economy, but it's also a customs union. And if you take things forward on the area of trade and thereafter in the area of investments, it would really make a marked difference in terms of our relationship and how binding the relationship will be.
Ambassador Puri, you did mention about AI and its use in natural in challenges like natural calamities as well as climate change. But how will this be facilitated is the question. I mean, you said that both countries need to work on their AI strengths.
Look, we have institutional arrangements between India and the European Union. We also have a reasonably good understanding that standards at both places kind of match, make us feel good. Mark, let me take you to something very interesting. President Trump started his fundamental attack on the European Union days after his inauguration by talking in terms of what they were doing to the big companies, the big IT companies, the Googles and the Facebooks, etc., and telling them that they have to be more competitive, more open, etc., etc. We've also taken similar action. Now the thing is, as large democracies which have to be responsible to their people and being rules bound and being economies where the ideas of freedom of speech is very true and very sacred, but at the same time the need for maintaining harmony, peace, security, national security is also paramount. So we come together, we share these principles, which is why Prime Minister Modi was co-chairing the AI Action Summit in France along with President Macron. So there are so many of these commonalities. There's no shortage of institutional mechanisms. We, in my opinion, really need to do what is called push and shove and make all of these happen. After that, the institutional arrangements will play out themselves and take things forward, something which I believe would be in the huge interest of India and also in a great interest for the European Union.
Finally, Ambassador Puri, it was a big delegation. You did say that, it's a college, in fact, of commissioners. There were meetings at the leader level, at the minister level. How does this actually reaffirm the importance of this India EU strategic partnership, which is now 21 years old?
Mark, more than anything else, it tells the world very clearly and tells European countries and others and tells us that we are a country of significance. We are an economy of significance. So the world's second largest economy thinks that it is worth it because maybe they are having challenges with their old ally across the Atlantic. That could be the case. Or they are having challenges with their other best friend, the Chinese. But they think that we are the country to reach out to and reach out in this measure, which is generally unprecedented in terms of protocol. India EU summits are about our Prime Minister, the President of the European Commission, and the President of the European Council. Today we had all the European commissioners. They're all like ministers. So think about this. A Prime Minister travels with his entire cabinet and goes to another country. What a strong signal it gives. And this is a signal that needs to be truly leveraged.
We'd have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Puri, for putting things into perspective for us. And I'm sure our viewers have gained as much as I have from your insights. Thanks very much. Moving on, the former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino, who is in New Delhi. He visited the Atal Tinkering Lab in Shalimar Bagh in Delhi. Massimino was briefed about how Atal Innovation Mission is creating workspaces where young minds can learn innovation skills. They can sculpt ideas through hands-on activities. They can work as well as learn in a flexible environment with a vision to cultivate 1 million children in India as neoteric innovators. The Atal Innovation Mission is establishing Atal Tinkering Laboratories in schools across India. The objective of this scheme is to foster curiosity, creativity and imagination, adaptive learning, as well as physical computing.
I think it's important to get interested and to see how much fun engineering can be and science and doing projects like we do in the space program. The Atoll Tinkering Lab is similar to the things we have in the U.S. where we call them maker spaces, where you can explore and try different things and build different things and work with technology. And I really was pleased to see that you have these same sorts of facilities, these laboratories here for the students to get a chance to experiment with things and try different things that they dream about.
Let's take a look at other stories making the news. India's Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a high-level meeting on Friday to review Delhi's law and order situation. He directed strict action against networks aiding Bangladeshi and Rohingya intruders into Delhi, entering the country, obtaining documents and facilitating their stay. India's Health Minister J.P. Nadda inaugurated the 9th National Summit on Good and Replicable Practices and Innovation in the Public Healthcare System in Puri in Odisha. This two-day summit aims to showcase and document innovative best practices adopted by states and union territories to address public health challenges, fostering knowledge sharing as well as cross-learning. A major mishap was averted off the coast of Alibag in Maharashtra's Raigad district after a fishing trawler caught fire early this morning. Responding swiftly, the Indian Navy, the Coast Guard and the Raigad police, they launched a rescue operation ensuring the safe evacuation of 18 people, all 18 people in fact, on board. Let's move on. Still to come here on DD India NewsHour. India observes National Science Day with a commemoration to Sir C.V. Raman's discovery, Raman effect. El Clasico rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona legends is coming to India. It comes to India. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Mark Lynn. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the grand Sufi music festival, Jahan-e-Khusro. This happened in New Delhi on Friday. And this event, which honors the legacy of the renowned Sufi poet, musician and writer Amir Khusro, was witnessed by the Prime Minister, his presence showcasing his commitment to promoting the diverse artistic and cultural heritage of India. The festival is organized by the Rumi Foundation and it's conceptualized by the acclaimed filmmaker and artist Muzaffar Ali. It was in 2001 that it was thought of. It marks the 25th anniversary of this festival. In fact, brings together renowned artists from across the world. They are celebrating the spirit of Sufism through soulful performances and artistic expressions. While addressing the gathering, Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted the importance of preserving and promoting India's rich cultural heritage. He emphasized the role of Sufi traditions in fostering unity and harmony.
सूफी संगीत एक ऐसी साझी विरासत है जिसको हम सब मिलजुल कर जीते आए हैं। हम सब ऐसे ही बड़े हुए हैं। अभी यहां नजरे कृष्णा की जो प्रस्तुति हुई उसमें भी हमारी साझी विरासत की झलक दिखाई देती है। साथियों, जहान खुसरो के इस आयोजन में एक अलग खुशबू है। ये खुशबू हिंदुस्तान की मिट्टी की है। वो हिंदुस्तान जिसकी तुलना हजरत अमीर खुसरो ने जन्नत से की थी। हमारा हिंदुस्तान जन्नत का वो बगीचा है जहां तहजीब का हर रंग फला फूला है। यहां की मिट्टी के मिजाज में ही कुछ खास है। शायद इसलिए जब सूफी परंपरा हिंदुस्तान आई तो उसे भी लगा जैसे वो अपनी ही जमी से जुड़ गई हो।
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also highlighted the correlation of Sufi and classical music.
जब सूफी संगीत और शास्त्रीय संगीत की वो प्राचीन धाराएं एक दूसरे से जुड़ी तो हमें प्रेम और भक्ति की नई कल सुनने को मिली। यही हमें हजरत खुसरो की कवाली में मिली। यही हमें बाबा फरीद के दोहे मिले, बुल्ले शाह के स्वर मिले, मीर के गीत मिले। यहां हमें कबीर भी मिले, रहीम भी मिले और रसखान भी मिले। इन संतों और औलियों ने भक्ति को एक नया आयाम दिया। आप चाहे सूरदास को पढ़ें या रहीम और रसखान को, या फिर आप आंख बंद करके हजरत खुसरो को सुने। जब आप गहराई में उतरते हैं तो उसी एक जगह पहुंचते हैं। ये जगह है आध्यात्मिक प्रेम की वो ऊंचाई जहां इंसानी बंदी से टूट जाती है और इंसान और ईश्वर का मिलन महसूस होता है।
Well, India observes National Science Day every year on the 28th of February. It commemorates the eminent physicist Sir C.V. Raman's discovery, Raman effect. The theme of this year's event is empowering Indian youth for global leadership in science and innovation for a Viksit Bharat.
Every year, 28th February is celebrated as National Science Day in remembrance of the discovery of Raman effect by eminent physicist Sir C.V. Raman. India is scaling new heights in the field of science. In the past 11 years, under guidance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the nation has created new dimensions in science, be it in the making of launch vehicles like PSLV and GSLVs, success of Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, Aditya L1, or the unprecedented mission of launching 104 satellites from a single rocket at the same time. In the past 10 years, nearly 460 satellites have been launched, including many from other countries as well.
स्पेस और साइंस की तरह एक और क्षेत्र है जिसमें भारत तेजी से अपनी मजबूत पहचान बना रहा है। ये क्षेत्र है एआई यानी आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस। हाल ही में मैं एआई के एक बड़े सम्मेलन में हिस्सा लेने के लिए पेरिस गया था। वहां दुनिया ने इस सेक्टर में भारत की प्रगति की खूब सराहना की। हमारे देश के लोग आज एआई का उपयोग किस किस तरह से कर रहे हैं, इसके उदाहरण भी हमें देखने को मिल रहे हैं।
Artificial intelligence is creating a niche for itself in the country. India is ready to match the global standards of quantum technology and machine learning. Talking about scientific research publications, India ranks among top 5 countries globally. India ranks 40 in the Global Innovation Index, while the country's patent filing has crossed 90,000, highest in 2 decades. It is because of strengthening of science and technology environment in the fields of astronomy, solar and wind energy, semiconductors, climate research, space research and biotechnology. India, in its journey towards the aim of Viksit Bharat or Developed India, continues to achieve new milestones in science and technology. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, you're watching DD India NewsHour. Time now for the sports news. And Jos Buttler has resigned as England's white ball cricket captain following his side's Champions Trophy exit. The 34-year-old will lead England for the last time in a final match, their last group match against South Africa on Saturday. England have lost 15 of their last 21 one-day internationals, including defeats against Australia and Afghanistan that ended their Champions Trophy campaign. Buttler's position came under increasing scrutiny after a sustained poor run of ODI form for England, stretching back to the start of the 2023 World Cup. And Australia have entered the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy 2025 after their last match against Afghanistan in Lahore was washed out. The rain started during Australia's chase, and when it stopped, the ground was too wet for the ground staff to keep the umpires hopeful. The abandonment saw Australia share points with Afghanistan. Now Afghanistan have just an outside chance of qualifying for the semi-finals. Before the rain arrived, Travis Head had scored a quick-fire 50 as Australia reached 109 for 1 in 12.5 overs in their chase of 274. Earlier, Sadiqullah Attal and Azmatullah Omarzai, they scored fighting 50s, and Afghanistan posted 273, losing all wickets in 50 overs. Football legends Luis Figo, Rivaldo and Fernando Morientes, they will play in an exhibition match between Real Madrid and Barcelona legends at the D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai on April 6. While Rivaldo, Figo and Morientes are already confirmed, more superstars are set to be unveiled soon for this match. The rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid, popularly known as the El Clasico, is one of the fiercest rivalries in the world of sports. And this will be the first time that the former stars from both Real Madrid and Barcelona will be playing in the iconic El Clasico fixture in India. However, Barcelona legends have visited India once before. This is in September of 2018 when they faced Indian footballing giants Mohun Bagan at the Salt Lake Stadium in Kolkata. The Loriots Academy revoked the tennis number one Yannick Sinner's his nomination for the annual World Sportsman of the Year award on Thursday, citing his 3-month doping ban. Sinner, who accepted the ban earlier this month, had tested positive for the anabolic agent clostebol, and the ban will end on May 4. The Loriots World Sports Awards, they have been presented since the year 2000, with nominees selected by global media recognizing individual and team achievement in sport. The nominees for this year's awards will be announced on March 3 in Madrid. Fenerbahce, the manager Jose Mourinho, was handed a 4-month ban and fined by the Turkish Football Federation following his comments about Turkish referees. The TFF had fined the 62-year-old Portuguese $44,000 after he criticized the match officials in a press conference on Monday. The TFF said that Mourinho's remarks, they violated sports ethics. They also promoted violence and disorder and could incite fan incidents. Fenerbahce issued a statement on Tuesday defending Mourinho, saying that his comments were taken out of context and deliberately distorted. Mourinho has previously also been fined and suspended for his comments about Turkish match officials. And in India's domestic cricket, day 3 of the ongoing Ranji Trophy final between Vidarbha and Kerala belonged to Vidarbha. The side has attained a crucial first innings lead on Friday. After managing merely 379 in their first innings, their bowlers did well to reduce Kerala from 125 for 3 to 342 all out. Kerala skipper Sachin Baby narrowly missed out on 100 as his team fell. In fact, as he fell 98. He was on 98. He made of 235 balls. He was out on 98. Meanwhile, Darshan Nalkande and Harsh Dubey as well as Parth Rekhade, they bagged 3 wickets each for Vidarbha. And with the end of day 3 now, Vidarbha has registered a 37-run lead and they're going to commence their second innings on day 4. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck Sindhu Polchok. This is at 2:51 a.m. on Friday. The tremors were felt across Kathmandu Valley and nearby areas in Nepal. The quake triggered a landslide in Dugunagadi in Botekhoshi, which showed cracks appearing in a police post wall in Kodari. So in Kathmandu, 2 people were injured while fleeing in panic. Security teams from the Nepal Army, Nepal Police and Armed Police, they were deployed to monitor. Authorities also have warned of possible dry landslides and falling rocks. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. For those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.